Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Dr. Timothy Dickey. I'm a practicing librarian at the Columbus, Ohio Metropolitan Libraries, and I also teach in the programs at Kent State, San Jose State, and the Catholic University. Since you chose to attend today's session, you're probably aware of the global epidemic of those living with Alzheimer's and related dementias. There are more than 50 million people worldwide, and new cases are diagnosed every 3 seconds around the globe. The number is projected to reach 82 million by the year 2030. The number of people with Alzheimer's in the United States alone, 5.8 million, is probably going to triple by the year 2050. And we're also thinking about the impact on tens of millions of people caring for those with dementia. You're probably also aware that dementia is an umbrella term covering a wide variety of different syndromes and spectrums. It appears in stages from mild cognitive impairment up to different levels of practicing dementia. And it is highly individual in how the symptoms present in any given person. There's no universal playbook to chart its development. Medical science has been able to determine a number of genetic and lifestyle factors associated with dementia. However, despite millions of dollars and 50,000 research papers published each year, we have no effective treatment whatsoever. There are 4 common prescriptions. They can alleviate symptoms, but they do not reverse or cure Alzheimer's dementia. On the other hand, the 2018 World Alzheimer Report says we may not yet be able to cure dementia, but we may be able to stop people getting it in the first place, and at the very least, it looks as though we can delay its onset. This is great news, and there are 3 pertinent areas of non-pharmacological interventions that have positive effects for brain health: healthy lifestyle choices, including better diet, regular exercise, good sleep hygiene, and anything that is good for the heart is good for the brain. Mental stimulation fosters neuroplasticity, or brain growth, throughout our lives, including any kind of active participation in brain training, puzzles, creative engagement, learning new languages, musical instruments, really any new skills. And social stimulation helps brain health by developing a person's social network. Mental stimulation through lifelong learning and interaction with physical materials and exhibits, and social stimulation through adult programming are already mission-central practices of libraries, museums, and other cultural heritage institutions. So we can be an essential part of the care team and can teach our students to care for this community. Specifically, I'd like to argue that LIS education can prepare our students for serving this vulnerable community in 4 central areas of practice: customer service and communication, information resources and reference, collection development for ongoing mental and social stimulation, and library programming for the dementia community. Today's presentation will offer some brief but concrete guidance in a couple of these areas of library practice and education. Librarians already champion the best principles of customer service, and our textbooks do extend a bit into different demographic targets in our user base. The ALISE RUSA, Reference in User Services Association, and IFLA both have offered brief standards and guidelines for serving older adults. This is a corner of the literature, however, which is frankly pretty thin. So I'm going to work outwards in my research in a medical and psychological literature to derive principles and best recommendations for communication and customer service throughout the progress of Alzheimer's and related dementias. The medical and psychological literature agrees that some common communication patterns are associated with dementia, even in the early stages. So our students should be aware of the differences to best serve this community. Difficulty finding words is the most common, including naming and verbal description difficulties due to semantic memory impairment. Each of these others may be different manifestations of the same basic difficulty with different coping tactics and different results. Describing familiar objects rather than calling them by name can be a conversational gambit to get around not knowing how to complete a sentence. Using familiar words repeatedly can be a reaction to not being able to find the more appropriate words. Even easily losing a train of thought or reverting to a native language can occur, since bilingual individuals may have stronger access to an earlier language. In many cases, a person living with dementia will retain their social graces, so the use of simple pleasantries or speaking less often in general may mask further deficiencies, and relying on gestures more than speaking, since so much of our communication is nonverbal. Whether these are seen as problems and challenges, or more sympathetically interpreted as just a difference in conversational pattern, librarians must be aware of them and prepared with best practices. Using the 10 points found in the IFLA guidelines as a basic framework, and supplemented by my interdisciplinary review of the pertinent medical and psychological literature, here is a set of best practices for service to persons living with dementia. Among these key points are elements of current library customer service practice and things that we should be doing every day and that we should be teaching our students how to do. But these are ones that are even more important for effective and positive work with persons with dementia. Many of these respond directly to the basic challenges from cognitive decline in short-term memory, situational focus, and vocabulary, also potential behavioral issues. Other best practices common in the dementia literature and applicable to LIS practice include the practice of redirection instead of correcting an error in conversation, and the use of what is called a therapeutic lie, a lie told as an act of kindness and compassion. Professional information services lie at the center of our LIS ethics, including the very current topic of equal access to all. And once again, we do have some foundations in what we know of the information needs of older adults. Health information has long been understood as the largest information need among older adults, and even more among the older cohorts, such as those 85 or older. Serious diagnoses intensify one's information needs. Cancer information seeking has been studied at length and can be seen as a parallel. Cancer information overload is a concept in the literature, and it is related to the most common health information behaviors, seeking and scanning. For dementia, those in the early stages might be anxious and seeking more information about their future. There even, interestingly, are those experiencing a potential or actual Alzheimer's diagnosis whose level of higher education and cognitive reserves lead them to more comprehensive research into their own disease. On the other hand, since dementia attacks the brain itself, and many people experiencing it also have anosognosia, or the medical and physical inability to comprehend that something is wrong, often it is the caregivers with whom librarians will negotiate the best access to information. The LIS service areas of collection development and collection management have also evolved towards considering the specific needs of a user base. So in teaching our students to serve older adults, LIS education can here as well be an integral part of dementia care. Library collection development tends to be conservative since it deals with content as what libraries are about. The trend has been, however, here too, to go to a more user-centered approach, to make collection decisions based on the characteristics of the user base. I must say the focus on user needs has not actually translated well yet into consideration for the needs of older adults. That gap in knowing their needs is especially poignant as we consider the specific needs of those living with Alzheimer's and related dementias. It has long been known in medicine that even as Alzheimer's progresses and reading comprehension deteriorates, some capacity for reading aloud remains, and reading in any instance can still be helpful. The decline in traditional cognition through reading a narrative linearly does not necessarily mean that reading and library materials are moot. On the contrary, what little is known about reading in dementia patients presents positive impact. There's a seminal article in the New England Journal of Medicine that correlated reading a couple decades ago with participation in other activities and any learning of new information. And these are positively correlated with prevention against dementia risk, protection against dementia risk. Participating in hobby reading for even an hour a day can be a strong defense against the risk of dementia. Classic fiction has been shown in another study to particularly stimulate some with dementia. And shared reading is especially important. Importantly, the best cognitive stimulation for older adults is active participation in the intellectual activity, where passive activity such as television watching carries an increased dementia risk. Lifelong learning of new skills and new information also brings positive benefits for dementia prevention. So even within the trajectory of dementia, there's a place for shaping our collections to meet information needs, both for those living with dementia and for the staff and caregivers who are living with them. Among the specific kinds of recommendation that I can make are repurposing of the picture book and YA collections, as long as our students can do so with respect. Music and AV materials help different kinds of mental stimulation, and I can also offer recommendations for a variety of fiction, non-fiction, and memoirs containing good information and approaches to Alzheimer's and related dementia for staff and caregivers. The most current cognition research also correlates greater social contact in midlife and beyond, both with a lower risk of developing dementia and with higher cognitive performance. Whether the increased social contact causes individuals to develop greater cognitive reserves, or greater levels of cognitive reserves allow people to develop more friends, one way or another, the association between cognition and social interaction is clear. Thus, we can think about how to keep older adults socially connected to one another through their library and any of its programs, also through cultural heritage institutions. Those experiencing cognitive decline may or may not be able to participate in a regular book group, but we can still offer mental stimulation and social connections by reading aloud and generating discussion around literacy and around stories. A story group is actually the oldest and longest running kind of library program for those with dementia, happening in some libraries for decades, and this is something we can teach our students to be prepared to help with this community. Building then on the evidence-based assessment of these non-pharmacological interventions, mental and social stimulation, I'd finally like to offer a few more brief thoughts about what we can teach students about library programming for this community to offer mental cognitive stimulation and social stimulation. So beyond literacy activities, book groups, and reading aloud, where we should start, I can point to interaction with music, which may be an even more powerful tool for mental stimulation, since music travels different neural pathways, multiple neural pathways, and it strengthens mental agility and resilience. One music therapist tells us music is generalized throughout the brain rather than localized in one area, which may be part of the reason older adults retain musical information longer and recall musical memories much more clearly than non-musical memories. Music can also mitigate high heart rate, blood pressure, and the onset of delirium. There is good research, furthermore, about the impact of music specifically on those experiencing dementia. Cognitive and emotional benefits from musical memories, defense against behavioral challenges, even increases in neuron building activity, and immediate connectedness to one's own past. But any kind of creative engagement, storytelling, painting, dance, poetry, drama, can strengthen mental resilience, build a sense of control over life, and can even counter depression and behavioral issues. So art therapies can also connect an individual to one's culture and to personal memories as a kind of reminiscence and life story work. So any kind of creative expression in library programs and museums and our cultural heritage institutions can boost neuroplasticity and mental resilience, as well as supporting creative connections to culture. Games and technology can also be great tools for non-pharmacological interventions and are especially pertinent to today's conference theme of transformational practices that we can teach our students. There is a popular misconception that older adults shy away from technology, but record numbers of them already are using smartphones, at least for social and family interactions, which is a good thing for our purposes, and they're already known to express more interest in health information games, for example, so we can gamify their need for health information. Alternatively, librarians can use iPads in outreach for mental stimulation, games and puzzles. Assistive technology can help older adults not only with mobility, but can add a richer multimedia environment to basic reminiscence therapies. Digital storytelling is one specific technological enhancement to the power of stories for sharing and reminiscence therapy. Some libraries have considered sensory spaces for programming, both for those with autism spectrum, interestingly, and dementia patrons in mind. Technology within a specially designed kind of room, which you can install in your library or other facility, supports very limited sensory stimulation to calm people or very active sensory stimulation for different therapeutic benefits. Other exploratory studies have even looked at uses of mixed virtual and augmented reality to assist reminiscence therapies. A virtual mixed reality aquarium, an interactive virtual movie database, and a digital photo book. I suggest that we all probably should be watching this space because I think games and technology could be some of the future of our dementia programming in libraries and museums and cultural heritage institutions. So the global epidemic of dementia confronts all of humanity with a lot of bad news, but LIS education can prepare our next generation of librarians and information professionals to make a positive impact with non-pharmacological interventions in this marginalized community. Better communication skills serve these patrons with sensitivity and competence, and our collections, our information resources, and our adult programming can enhance the quality of life with dementia and can, in some cases, even prevent dementia or help delay its onset. We can realize our potential as partners on the care team and as support for the direct caregivers. Here's a citation to my book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it directly from the publisher. You can get it directly from me at a discount if you would like. But with that, I would like to thank you for your time, for your work with your students, and especially for caring about this marginalized community. I welcome your questions and comments either via email or in the Q&A immediately following this session.